Welcome back to the Sunday Footy Show. It's deep dive time, and we're going to take a look at round 11 clashes that would have been. And we've got North and Geelong starting us off, Bill. This is one of my all-time favourite games of all time. This 94 prelim you're a part of, Bill.
Lee Colbert there kicks it up forward. Look at Barnes, it goes through his hands. Lee Tudor, the floating kick goes over Mick Malthouse, who was unbelievable. Gazza marks in the square. And, of course, the rest is history. No doubt about that. Andrew Wills there.
Bill, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
The siren goes.
Yes.
He just needs to score to win.
Yep.
What words of wisdom are you about to give him here, because you arrive on the scene?
I do. I knew the camera would be on him, and I'd get a bit of... But also I said, you know what I said to him? Gazza, don't play on. I could see him going out right and kicking a banana or something, but he kicked it, and we went through to a grand final, of course, and... that's enough said.
Hey, Bill, I hate to do this to you, but just moments before that kick, what was happening here with you? Just want to ask you the question of what actually happened here? Watch Bill.
Oh, where?
So we're watching the ball. You could have actually had the famous moment yourself.
Why would you bring that up, Lordo?
Baby giraffe or something.
No, well, it was late in the game. You know what I'd done? I'd been
at the 89 grand final as well.
Shut up. I'd been at centre forward all day and in the ruck and rucked all day.
You're in the ruck. You're in the ruck.
At forward line ruck. I did that all day. I was stuffed. I had a big day.
Hey, I feel for Dean Wallace here. This is one that Essendon supporters just won't let go.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take it out. Dean Wallace here. He had the ball. Lordo's in the goal square. He's had Silvani's kicked ball already. Just get it in nice and long. And unfortunately, he tried to get around Damo. But this was a famous one, wasn't it?
Oh, it was.
How we lost that is...
And North Melbourne then was a beneficiary of Carlton going through, Lordo, because I don't think they would have beaten your team had they gone through.
Nathan?
Now, Lordo, 97 prelim. I thought I was going to play in a grand final in my first year. 22 points up with 9 minutes to go. And then Tony Liberatore has this shot at goal, which he declares was a goal. Obviously, we would have known if the posts were higher, but they swear it was a goal. That would have put us, I think, 28 points up, and I don't think we could have lost from there. But the rest is history. Darren Jarman went berserk and kicked 4 goals.
Hey, Mick, very hard to individualise all the matches you coached, but what about the 2011 prelim against Hawthorn? The emotions, absolute roller coaster.
Oh, it was. That's one of my favourite games. I've got to say that the Franklin goal, of course, and if you watch closely, you'll see Chris Tarrant put his hands to his head, thinking he's lost the game. But a little bit of passage here where Bawley was able to find a bit of space, mainly through Daisy Thomas, and they get in front. We're in all sorts of trouble that game, though, because the lead-up, we had so many injuries and players coming off suspension. I just thought we needed to have a really low-scoring game to win it. We couldn't go goal for goal with Hawthorn. So it was fantastic. It was a great result.
Hey, Mick, we're watching you on the screen there. Your emotions after that game, you were just in tears. Is that just pure exhaustion, stress? What was it?
Probably both, Matthew. Quite frankly, it was when you're battling history, because history showed that it was 75 years since Collingwood had actually played off in 2 grand finals in a row, and halfway through the year we were travelling pretty well. I think we'd only lost 1 or 2 games, and so the pressure then went on to us in regard to results, which was a shame because we were so process orientated there. And by the end of the game, I think we're all exhausted, knowing we're in the grand final next week. But just to get through that game was quite extraordinary.
Just watching the footage again. Yeah, Buddy kicking the goal. You're right. Chris Tarrant puts the hands to the head.
Yeah,
great goal.
Yeah. And Damo, obviously, there's one that's obviously we cut out of this vision here and move on to the Giants and the Western Bulldogs, a famous rivalry that's begun.
Yeah, it was the official birth, wasn't it, of the Giants and Bulldogs rivalry, the 2016 preliminary final, and the scenes after that game with the Bulldogs celebrating their big moment. They obviously went on to win the grand final the next week against the Swans.
Yeah, unbelievable that was in that day when Bontempelli kicks the seal. We want to move on to Richmond would have played the Sydney Swans, and some famous vision we love, Tony Jewell in the coach's box. So
coaches, they just go mad,
They go mad while we've got Mickey Malthouse on. So let's take a look at Tony Jewell in the coach's box after a moment where Richmond obviously had a horror loss there. But Tony Jewell, TJ, what's your memories of the great Tony Jewell?
Well, there he is there. That's well, Mick's a former teammate of Tony Jewell's. As a coach, he was quite emotive, wasn't he, Mick?
Oh yeah, I never played with him, but I certainly, as far as coaching goes, Tony wore his heart on his sleeve. And one of the things about that 1980 premiership, if you wound the clock back to the last round. I think we're sitting on top of the ladder. We played South Melbourne, who were close to the bottom, got beaten by 10 goals, and you think, I think we fell to fourth, but there was a belief. I can still remember sides finishing. Even my sides had finished not top, but you thought you can win this one. Whereas sometimes you finished on top, you thought, oh, it's going to be damn hard. But I remember Tony thinking, oh, the whole year's lost because of that one game. But I think a lot of players just put the cue in the rack to say, look, we're saving ourselves for the final. So that's how it turned out anyway. But psychologically, so much happens in a game of footy, and that one there was in particular one that a lot of players just injured.
Yeah, and speaking of mad coaches, Kevin Sheedy, my coach for 13 years, I want to take you through this moment. Absolute mayhem. Mark Johnson went down, and Kevin Sheedy just come out at I think it was half-time or three-quarter time, and he's saying to Mitchell White, where are you going to get you? And then he turned it into a seagull hit him and all that sort of thing. But Mitchell White didn't hurt too many guys, Mitchell, so I don't know the exact incident of how that happened. But Cornsey, your famous coach.
Yeah, well, Jocko, we sort of choked in 2001, 2 and 3, and Mick Malthouse's Collingwood side was a key part of that. But we finally got there in 2004, and that was the way that he got back at everyone that called them chokers. But I love Jocko, he was mad.
Our good mate Mel Brown. We love anything Mel Brown did. And have a look at this here. He's having a blue, and then he grabs the reporter's microphone, pulls the lead off it, and throws it away. Good on you, Mel.
OK, now, hey, Mick, we're really tight for time, but you need to settle the mystery here. This is Anzac Day. What year was
2005.
this? 2005 Anzac Day. You took all the players to the 50-metre line, and I was doing boundary at the time for 9. It was one of the most ferocious sprays I've ever heard. I thought it was directed at Scotty Burns, which clearly it wasn't. Who copped it, Mick?
I think they all had a little piece of it. I don't necessarily discriminate who I hit with that sort of stuff. I mean, if a team's not playing well, if you're in my vision, you'd probably cop it. It's amazing, I learned a very. I know I'll be quick here. My second game I played at St Kilda, so that's going right back, and I ran in all eagerly, and I just copped an absolute barrel from Alan Jeans, and the big cowboy Neil came over to me and he said, I hope you've learned a lesson. And I said, yeah, I've got to pick my man up. He said, no, never be first in for a break. So I reckon whoever was in front of me was going to cop it that day.
Great stuff. Mick,
Good on
always
you,
a
Mick.
pleasure to catch up with you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Pleasure. Thanks again, lads.
Good on you. Mick Malthouse joining us there.